A poor student married a 71-year-old woman. What he discovered a week later shocked him. A gray sky loomed over the small Texas college town. The streets slick with cold rain. Mark Davis walked with his head down, his backpack soaked, his thoughts heavier still. At 23, he was drowning. His final year of law school, a grueling part-time job, and the mountain of debts left by his late father pressed down on him like a curse. His phone buzzed. Mark Davis speaking. A calm, elegant voice responded. Mr. Davis, this is Eleanor Brooks. I'd like to speak with you. It concerns your financial situation. He frowned. I'm sorry, how do you know? I know enough, she said smoothly. Brooks Bistro, 7 p.m. tonight. The line went dead. Curiosity gnawed at him. That evening, drenched by a fresh downpour, he stepped into Brooks Bistro, a quiet cafe lit in amber hues and scented with dark roast and cinnamon. At a corner table sat a woman whose presence commanded the room. Silver hair in a perfect chignon, a tailored suit that whispered old wealth. Mark, she said, gesturing to the seat across from her. He hesitated, then sat. Mrs. Brooks, what is this about? Your debts, she said without flinching. The ones your father left, the ones keeping you awake. I have a solution. He narrowed his eyes. Which is? She set down her teacup with a gentle clink. Marry me. The words hung in the air, absurd and immovable. Excuse me? You heard me. Her tone remained calm. This isn't romance. It's business. I'll pay off everything. Your school, your mother's treatments, your sister's tuition. In return, you'll be my husband. Name only. He laughed, but it died in his throat. Why me? You don't even know me. Exactly, she said, leaning in. You're young, unattached, and desperate. I don't need love. I need a companion. Someone to carry my name, manage my estate. Think of it as a contract. Mark stood, rattled. I need time, of course, but not too long. My offer has an expiration date. That night, at the kitchen table of their worn-down apartment, Mark told his mother everything. She listened in silence, her hands trembling. It sounds crazy, he finished. It sounds like salvation, she whispered. You're not selling yourself. You're saving us. He didn't sleep. By morning, he knew his answer. At 7 sharp, Mark returned to the bistro. Eleanor was already there. You've decided? She asked, eyes still on her tablet. He nodded. I'll do it. 1 week later, they were married in a sterile courthouse. Eleanor wore gray silk and a smile that never reached her eyes. Her lawyer and a notary were the only witnesses. When the ceremony ended, she turned to him. Welcome to your new life, Mr. Davis. Rain fell again as they left. In a puddle by the curb, Mark caught his reflection. Was this salvation or surrender? Eleanor's estate loomed like something out of an old novel. Towering columns, vast lawns, windows like empty eyes. The cab stopped at the wrought iron gate, which creaked open slowly. Inside, Eleanor greeted him with frosty grace. Dinner is at 7. A housekeeper led Mark to a grand bedroom. It was stunning. Ornate furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows, a bed fit for royalty, but cold, untouched, like a museum piece. At dinner, they sat at opposite ends of a massive mahogany table. The food was exquisite, the silence thick. I trust you're settling in, Eleanor said between bites of filet mignon. It's a lot, Mark replied. She smiled, sharp and brief. You'll adapt, or you won't. Either way, you're here. You never told me much about your late husband. Her knife stopped mid-slice. She dabbed her lips with a linen napkin. He and your father knew each other. Crossed paths. Not all encounters end well. What does that mean? Mark asked, pulse quickening. She looked at him, her expression unreadable. Let's just say, some business remains unfinished. But that's the past. You'll soon understand why I chose you. That night, Mark wandered the hallways. The house was too quiet, every creak of the floorboards a whisper. He passed door after locked door, brass handles gleaming under low light. They seemed to hum with secrets. In the library, something caught his eye. An ornate key on Eleanor's desk. No one was around. He picked it up. It was heavy, cool, etched with tiny symbols. He slipped it into his pocket. Later, in the solitude of his luxurious prison, Mark lay awake, turning the key in his hand. What doors did it open? What truths did it guard? And why, out of all the people in the world, had she chosen him? That night, with the mansion cloaked in silence, Mark crept down the corridor. The key thudded in his pocket with each step. He paused, before a door he hadn't dared touch before. Moonlight glinted on its handle. He looked over his shoulder, then slid the key into the lock. Click! The sound echoed like thunder. His hand hovered at the doorknob, heart hammering. What was behind it, and what would he find out about Eleanor Brooks, the woman who had just bought him? Mark slowly pushed the door open. The room was a time capsule, frozen in another era. Dust coated the furniture, faded wallpaper peeled at the corners. Photographs in tarnished silver frames lined a nearby table, their black and white images, whispering of happier times. A young Eleanor, a man who had to be her late husband, and another couple Mark didn't recognize. But it was the stack of papers on the desk that drew him in. He stepped closer, flipping through the brittle pages. Legal documents, failed business ventures, partnerships between Eleanor's husband and his own father. His breath caught. A letter in sharp, slanted handwriting leapt from the pile, its words filled with venom. You ruined everything. My family was left with nothing because of your lies. Mark's hands trembled as he reached. The last page, a marriage license, his name, Eleanor's. The date? Weeks before their actual wedding, earlier than he had known. On the desk lay a leather-bound diary. He hesitated, then opened it. The entries were Eleanor's, cold, methodical, deliberate. They detailed a plan to marry Mark not out of love, but vengeance. I will take everything from him, just as his father did to me. He will be my pawn. The door creaked behind him. Enjoying yourself? Eleanor's voice sliced through the silence like a blade. He spun around, guilt and dread painted across his face. Eleanor, You thought you'd find answers here? She stepped into the room, her silhouette backlit by the dim hallway. Curiosity killed the cat, Mark. What do you think you're doing? He steadied himself. Why did you really marry me? Was this ever about me? Or just my father? Her eyes hardened, the elegant mask she always wore cracking. It's not your place to ask questions. Just do what you're told, and you'll leave this marriage better off than you started. Isn't that enough? Mark's fists clenched. Enough? You lied to me, manipulated me. This isn't a marriage. It's a trap. Her lips curved into a faint smile, empty and cold. A trap? Maybe you should have read the fine print before signing those papers. She stepped closer, her voice sharp. You think you're smart, Mark, but you're just like your father, blind to the damage you cause until it's too late. And if you hated him so much, Mark growled, why take it out on me? She stared at him, the silence thick. Then she turned. Away. You're in over your head, Mark. Stay out of things that don't concern you. Her footsteps faded into the hall. That night, Mark lay in bed, wide-eyed in the dark. The diary, the documents, Eleanor's voice echoing in his mind. What had he stepped into? Was this really just about revenge? A faint sound drew him from his thoughts, her voice muffled through the wall. He crept toward her study, pressing his ear against the door. Make sure the transfer is complete, Eleanor said sharply. We can't let him back out now. Time is running out. Mark's blood ran cold. He was deeper in this than he'd ever imagined. Later, in the grand library, he sat alone, his mind a whirlpool of confusion and fear. The estate, once majestic, now felt like a gilded prison, luxury layered, over lies. Desperate, Mark approached the one person who might know the truth, Mr. Harris, the estate's butler. Calm, collected, always watching. Mr. Harris, he began quietly. I need your help. Something isn't right here. The older man looked at him, unreadable. Then he spoke. I was wondering how long it would take you. You know something. About Eleanor, about all of this. Harris hesitated. You're not the first young man she's drawn in. Eleanor is clever, resourceful, ruthless. My advice, watch your back. Then why stay? Why help her? A flicker of sadness crossed the butler's face. Some of us don't have the luxury of walking away. Determined, Mark contacted a trusted friend from law school, Peter. Under the guise of catching up, he asked, hypothetically, if someone signed a contract under false pretenses, could they get out of it? Peter raised an eyebrow. Hypothetically, yes, if you have evidence. Mark, are you in trouble? Mark forced a smile. Just a class project. Thanks, man. The next few days, Mark searched Eleanor's office during her absences. Late one night, he found an envelope addressed to his father. Inside was Eleanor's handwriting. Furious. Unrelenting. You left us with nothing. My husband's heart couldn't take the stress. He's dead because of you. I will make your family pay. Mark's stomach turned. This wasn't just about money. This was a vendetta years in the making. That night, he began mapping escape routes. But Eleanor was perceptive. The next morning, she confronted him in the breakfast room. You've been busy, she said coolly. He froze, spoon halfway to his mouth. I don't know what you mean. Don't play coy. If you think you can outsmart me, you're wrong. I've taken down better men than you. Mark swallowed hard. I'm not doing anything wrong. She leaned closer, her voice a whisper. Betray me, and you'll wish you hadn't. Then she walked away. That afternoon, the private investigator he'd quietly hired returned. The news confirmed what Mark feared. Eleanor's husband, Harold Brooks, had been ruined by Mark's father in a shady real estate scheme. The financial devastation led to Harold's fatal heart attack. Eleanor's marriage proposal had been a calculated strike. Vengeance, not love. That night, Mark met Peter in secret. With the documents and the investigator's report, they built a case. Eleanor's past, her manipulation, even her ongoing dealings that bordered on fraud. Peter looked up from the files. This is enough to take her down. But be careful. If she realizes what you're doing, Mark nodded grimly. I know, she's dangerous. But he also knew one thing for sure. He would not be her pawn any longer. Grimly, Mark thought, she's already done enough damage. It's time to end this. The next morning, he waited in the grand sitting room, the weight of truth nestled in his bag. When Eleanor finally entered, her composure was flawless. Chilly, regal. He rose. We need to talk, he said. Eleanor raised a perfectly sculpted brow, her tone clipped. Is that so? What could possibly be so urgent? Mark's voice didn't waver. He reached into his bag and pulled out the documents. I know everything. About my father, about Harold, about what you've done to rebuild your fortune for... The first time, her mask cracked. Her eyes flicked to the papers in his hands. You've been snooping again, haven't you? She said, voice low. Do you even understand what your father did to my family? Mark stepped closer, his voice rising. I understand what he did, but what about you? What about the people you've hurt along the way? What about me? I didn't deserve any of this. Eleanor's jaw clenched. And my family deserved to lose everything? My husband deserved to die from stress and heartbreak, while your father lived comfortably?" Her voice trembled. "Don't talk to me about fairness, Mark." His hands shook as he held up the evidence. "Revenge won't bring him back, and it won't undo what happened. You've spent years consumed by this, hurting people, destroying lives. When does it stop?" Eleanor's shoulders sank. For a fleeting moment, regret flickered in her eyes. Softly, she said, "You remind me of him, you know. Harold. That same fire, that same stubbornness. I didn't expect to feel anything for you, Mark. But here we are." Mark hesitated, caught off guard by the vulnerability in her voice. "Then stop. Let it go, before it's too late." But before she could answer, the crunch of tires on gravel cut through the silence. Moments later, police officers strode into the room, Peter at their side. "Eleanor Brooks," one officer said, "we have a warrant for your arrest. You're being charged with multiple counts of fraud and conspiracy." Her face hardened as she turned to Mark. "You called them?" He met her gaze. "You left me no choice." As they led her away, Eleanor looked back one last time. "You may think you've won, Mark, but revenge doesn't go away so easily. Be careful it doesn't consume you, too." Mark watched her disappear down the hall, a wave of sadness and relief washing over him. He had exposed the truth, protected himself. But her final words lingered. Was she right? Would the past ever truly let him go? The judge's gavel banged sharply, marking the end of Eleanor Brooks's trial. Mark sat quietly in the back row as the woman he once loved faced the consequences of her actions. Despite everything, his testimony had helped reduce her sentence, not from sympathy, but from a deeper understanding of the pain they both carried. As she was escorted from the courtroom, Eleanor turned. Their eyes met. Gone was the cold calculation. In its place, the faintest, almost apologetic nod. Days later, Mark returned to the estate one last time. The once imposing house felt hollow now. Eleanor had arranged for him to receive the deed. The estate lawyer handed him a letter in her familiar, elegant handwriting. It was never about the money, Mark. It was about closure. Harold deserved justice, but I lost sight of what truly mattered. You've reminded me of something I had forgotten, the capacity to move forward. This estate is no longer a monument to my pain. Let it become something more. Use it well. Mark didn't hesitate. He sold the estate. It had always felt more like a prison than a home. With the proceeds, he paid off his family's debts, freeing his mother from the shadow of his father's past. The rest he used to start a scholarship fund in Harold Brooks's name, a tribute to a man caught in the crossfire of two families' bitterness. Returning to law school felt like a homecoming. This time, Mark wasn't just pursuing a degree. He was chasing purpose. He interned at a legal aid center, helping people like Eleanor, people broken by injustice, seeking a way out. One crisp autumn afternoon, a letter arrived. The handwriting was unmistakable. He sat on a park bench, heart steady, and unfolded it. "Mark, I've had much time to reflect. For years I believed revenge would heal the wounds Harold's death left behind. But it didn't. Revenge is its own prison. Your kindness, even when I didn't deserve it, taught me something I never expected. Forgiveness isn't weakness, it's strength. Thank you for being better than the world around you. Thank you for showing me we don't have to repeat the cycles we inherit. I hope you find the happiness I never could." Eleanor Mark stared at the letter for a long time. Then, gently he folded it and slipped it into his pocket, feeling, for the first time in a long while, peace. A year after Eleanor's arrest, Mark stood at a small ceremony in front of a group of scholarship recipients. Behind him hung a simple plaque, the Harold Brooks Scholarship Fund. For second chances, he addressed the crowd. "This fund isn't just about money," he said. "It's about opening doors for those who were overlooked. It's about turning pain into purpose." After the ceremony, he stepped aside, alone, looking up at the clear sky. For the first time, the weight of the past had lifted. Eleanor's letter remained in his pocket, a quiet reminder of all they had lost and all they had found. Thank you for joining us on this journey of resilience, redemption, and forgiveness. Mark's story reminds us that even in the face of betrayal, the choices we make can lead us toward healing and hope. If this story moved you, give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who might need its message. And don't forget to subscribe to Soul-Stirring Stories for more heartfelt tales that remind us all of the power of compassion, justice, and love. Until next time, take care and cherish the lessons life brings.